two men on patrol, 15 kilometers from a golden shrine, gone in seconds, while missiles were already flying toward Kuwait, toward Bahrain, toward Jordan. On the very night Iran buried the man who ruled it for almost 4 decades, 2 governments are demanding answers. One region is holding its breath. And nobody, not Tehran, not Washington, not the men guarding that shrine, can say who fired first or what happens next. Welcome back to Professor Zhang Report. It's good to have you here again. Wherever you're watching from tonight, whether it's your morning coffee or your evening wind down, thank you for making the time to stay informed with us. If you find value in reporting like this, I'd be grateful if you considered subscribing. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. For nearly 40 years, one man controlled almost every major decision in Iran. His name was Ali Khamenei. He became the country's supreme leader in 1989, and since then, he shaped Iran's military, its foreign policy, and its relationship with the rest of the world. But in February of this year, that era came to an end. Khamenei was killed in a strike carried out by the United States and Israel, along with several members of his own family. It marked the start of a war that has not fully stopped since. Because of the scale of Khamenei's power, Iran did not rush to bury him. His body was kept for months while the country prepared what would become one of the largest funeral events in its modern history. Millions of people were expected to take part. The government arranged for the body to travel through several cities, including stops in Iraq, before finally returning home to Mashhad, the city where Khamenei was born. Mashhad is home to the Imam Reza shrine, one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam. It was there, in the early hours of July 9th, that Khamenei was finally laid to rest. The funeral procession itself drew enormous crowds. Millions of mourners lined the streets, some carrying flags, some carrying portraits of the late leader, and some chanting against the United States and its president. Security for the event was extremely tight. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, often called the IRGC, took charge of protecting the massive crowds and the burial site itself. But even with all of that security, something went wrong. 2 members of the Basij, a volunteer force connected to the IRGC, were shot and killed while patrolling near Sarfarzan Square. That location sits about 15 kilometers away from the shrine where Khamenei was buried. A local guard unit later confirmed the names of the 2 men who died. A bystander walking nearby was also hurt in the attack and had to be taken to the hospital. As of now, no one has said publicly who carried out the shooting. Iranian authorities have promised to investigate and to find those responsible, but they have not released further details. At the very same time this was happening inside Iran, a completely separate and much larger conflict was unfolding just outside its borders. Iran's Revolutionary Guard fired missiles and drones at military bases connected to the United States. These targets were not inside Iran. They were located in neighboring Gulf countries, including Kuwait and Bahrain. Jordan also came under fire, with its military reporting that it intercepted several missiles launched from Iranian territory. These attacks did not come out of nowhere. They followed days of renewed fighting between the United States and Iran. American forces had already carried out fresh strikes on Iranian military sites, and Iran responded by aiming its weapons at American allies in the region. Kuwait's air defense systems managed to stop the missiles heading its way, and officials there reported no major injuries. Bahrain also intercepted incoming drones and missiles, though one residential building was damaged during the exchange. Jordan's military said it successfully shot down all 8 of the missiles fired toward its territory. It is important to understand that these 2 events, the shooting near the shrine in Mashhad and the missile exchange with Gulf states, are not the same story, even though they happened around the same time. One took place quietly, inside a heavily guarded Iranian city, during a moment meant for national mourning. The other played out loudly across international borders, involving air defense systems, sirens, and international condemnation. Together, they paint a picture of a country dealing with serious problems on more than one front at the very same moment it was trying to bury its former leader and project strength to the world. Gulf leaders did not stay quiet. Several nations spoke out publicly against Iran's missile and drone attacks, calling for calm and urging a return to diplomacy instead of more fighting. Their reaction shows just how nervous the wider region has become, watching to see whether this moment turns into something bigger or whether cooler heads find a way to pull everyone back from the edge. Right now, in the days following the burial, officials from several countries are speaking out, and their statements are giving the public a clearer picture of what is confirmed and what is still unknown. Inside Iran, the local security branch responsible for Mashhad has released an official statement about the shooting near the shrine. This branch is called the Imam Reza Guard Corps, and it operates as the regional arm of the IRGC in Khorasan Razavi province, the area where Mashhad is located. In its statement, the group named the 2 men who were killed. Their names were given as Sayed Sajjad Alavi and Mehdi Honormand. According to the statement, the 2 men were on a routine security patrol near Sarfarzan Square when they came under attack. The Guard Corps said the men were there to help maintain public order during the funeral events. The statement also confirmed that a bystander was injured during the shooting and was taken to a hospital for treatment. Iranian officials have made a promise in response to the attack. They say the people responsible will be found and punished according to law. However, they have not released any names, any group affiliation, or any theory about who carried out the shooting. This means that, as of now, the attack remains officially unsolved. Iranian state media outlets, including Tasnim and IRNA, have also reported on the incident, describing it in similar terms and confirming the same basic details: 2 men killed, 1 bystander wounded, and an investigation underway. Outside of Iran, the reaction has focused mostly on the missile and drone exchange rather than the shooting in Mashhad. Kuwait's military released a statement confirming that its air defense systems intercepted multiple missiles and drones fired from Iranian territory. Officials there said the interceptions were successful and that no serious injuries or major damage occurred as a result. Kuwait hosts a significant American military presence, and officials have pointed to this as one of the reasons its territory came under fire. Bahrain's government also spoke publicly about the attacks it faced. Officials there confirmed that air raid sirens sounded across the capital before their defense systems intercepted incoming missiles and drones. Bahrain is home to a major American naval fleet, which is likely why it became one of the targets. According to Bahrain's statement, 1 residential building near the airport sustained damage during the exchange, though officials confirmed that no one was killed in that specific incident. Jordan's military issued its own statement as well, confirming that it intercepted 8 ballistic missiles that had been launched from Iran. Jordanian officials described the interception as fully successful, with no reported casualties or serious damage on their side. Regional governments have not stayed silent about these events. Several Gulf nations issued statements condemning Iran's missile and drone attacks. These statements called for restraint on all sides and urged a return to diplomatic talks rather than continued military action. This kind of public condemnation from multiple governments at once shows how seriously the region is treating this new round of fighting. Meanwhile, Iran's own foreign ministry has responded to the criticism by placing blame elsewhere. Iranian officials have argued that recent American and Israeli strikes on Iranian territory are what triggered this latest round of conflict. According to statements from Iran's foreign ministry, the country views its actions as a direct response to what it calls unlawful aggression against its territory. Iranian diplomats have also been active behind the scenes, holding phone calls with officials in nearby countries such as Oman, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, apparently in an effort to discuss the wider situation and possibly cool tensions. At the same time, questions continue to surround Iran's new leadership. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late supreme leader and his official successor, has still not made any public appearance since his father was killed back in February. He was notably absent from the funeral events, including the burial itself. Iranian sources close to the government have suggested that security concerns are the reason for his continued absence, though no official explanation has been given directly by his office. Taken together, these statements show a country dealing with an unresolved security incident inside its own borders, an unfinished military exchange with several of its neighbors, and a leadership question that remains unanswered even after such a major national event. The events of the past few days carry consequences that reach well beyond the immediate headlines, and they are worth breaking down carefully. The first consequence is economic. The Gulf region is one of the most important areas in the world for oil and gas production, and any instability here tends to affect energy markets almost immediately. When missiles and drones are flying between Iran and countries like Kuwait and Bahrain, shipping companies and oil traders pay close attention. Even when interceptions are successful and no major damage occurs, the mere presence of active conflict raises insurance costs for ships moving through the region and adds uncertainty to global oil prices. Businesses and everyday consumers, even those living far from the Middle East, can end up feeling this through higher fuel costs. The second consequence is political. For years, Gulf nations like Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan have tried to walk a careful line, maintaining relationships with the United States while also avoiding direct conflict with Iran. This latest round of missile and drone attacks makes that balancing act much harder. When these countries publicly condemn Iran and call for restraint, they are sending a clear signal that patience is wearing thin. If attacks like this continue, these nations may feel pressured to take a stronger stance, which could deepen divisions in the region rather than ease them. The third consequence involves Iran's own internal stability. The shooting near the shrine in Mashhad happened during one of the most heavily secured events the Iranian government has organized in recent memory. Despite that heavy security, 2 men were killed and the attacker has not been identified. This raises real questions about how much control Iranian security forces actually have, especially during a moment when the country is trying to show strength and unity to its own people and to the world. A security failure like this, even a small one in terms of casualties, can shake public confidence at a time when the government needs it most. There's also the matter of leadership. Mojtaba Khamenei's continued absence from public life, including from his own father's funeral, adds another layer of uncertainty. Succession moments are typically used by governments to project stability and continuity. When the new leader is not seen, questions naturally follow about who is actually making decisions and how secure the transition of power really is. Different perspectives are emerging on how to interpret all of this. Some analysts view Iran's missile and drone attacks on Gulf states as a calculated show of strength, meant to demonstrate that Iran can still respond to American pressure even after months of war and heavy losses. Others see it as a sign of desperation, a country lashing out at nearby targets because it currently lacks the ability to strike back directly at the United States or Israel with the same force it once had. Meanwhile, some regional observers argue that Gulf nations are being unfairly pulled into a conflict that was never truly theirs, caught between hosting American military bases and trying to maintain some level of peace with their much larger neighbor. For people living in the region, these consequences are not abstract. Families in Kuwait and Bahrain have had to deal with air raid sirens and the reality of intercepted missiles near their homes. Communities in Mashhad are grieving both the loss of a national leader and, separately, the sudden deaths of 2 young security patrol members. And across the wider Middle East, ordinary citizens continue to absorb the ripple effects of a war that shows little sign of a clear or lasting resolution. As this story continues to develop, there are several important questions worth thinking about, and this is where input from viewers becomes valuable. One question worth considering is this: can a security patrol failure like the one near the shrine in Mashhad happen again during future large gatherings in Iran? With so many public events planned around national mourning and political transitions, security will likely remain a major concern for the government moving forward. Viewers who follow the region closely may have their own thoughts on whether this points to a wider pattern of vulnerability. Another question involves the Gulf states themselves. Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan have shown that their air defense systems can successfully intercept missiles and drones. But how long can this continue if attacks keep happening? At what point might these nations decide that defense alone is not enough and consider a more active response? This is a question that regional analysts are watching closely, and it may shape the next stage of this conflict. Looking ahead, there are a few specific developments worth watching in the coming weeks. First, Iranian authorities have promised an investigation into the shooting near the shrine, and any updates on suspects or motives would mark a significant shift in that part of the story. Second, diplomatic conversations are already taking place between Iran and countries like Oman, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. Whether these talks lead to any kind of de-escalation, or whether they fail to slow down the exchange of attacks, will likely shape the next chapter of this conflict. Third, the continued public absence of Mojtaba Khamenei remains an open question. If he eventually appears publicly, it could signal a stabilizing moment for Iran's leadership. If his absence continues, questions about who is truly running the country will likely grow louder. For viewers who want to stay informed as this situation unfolds, there are a few simple steps worth taking. Following reputable international news sources that have reporters on the ground in the Gulf region can help separate confirmed facts from early, unverified claims. Paying attention to official statements from government defense ministries, rather than relying only on social media posts, tends to provide a more accurate picture of events as they happen. And staying aware of how oil markets react to regional tensions can offer a practical, real-world way to understand how seriously the wider world is treating this conflict. This channel will continue to track these developments closely, breaking down new information as it becomes available and separating what is confirmed from what remains speculation. Before closing tonight, here is something worth sitting with. A shrine built to honor one of the most influential religious and political figures in modern Iranian history became, within the same week, the site of an unresolved and deadly attack on the very security forces meant to protect it. At the same moment, missiles and drones crossed the border into 3 neighboring countries, and just as quickly, they were intercepted and stopped. 2 very different kinds of danger, playing out within days of each other, in a region still trying to find its way back to stability. Thank you for spending this time with Professor Jung Report. If tonight's breakdown helped you understand the situation a little more clearly, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next update on this developing story. Wherever you are watching from tonight, know that this region's next moves will likely shape headlines for weeks to come, and this channel will be here to walk through them with you, one confirmed fact at a time.